Tug lightly on this bowl of mine. Well, my screen has seen some better times. Well, my buddy poked a hole, now my weed falls deep inside. Please tug lightly on this bowl of mine.
So what are you doing? Nothing. Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Cannabis and Coffee with me, Tamarijuana. It's a beautiful day in the East Kootenays. This morning, sun's shining, and the snow is finally starting to melt. I have my daffodils starting to bloom on the side of my house, and I think spring might be here. I'm almost afraid to say that, but it might be here. It's been a long frickin' winter. I don't know about the rest of you, but well, how are things looking out in Montreal, Loretta?
Hi there, it's Loretta from Montreal, and yes, spring is in the air. Spring is in the air, and that means...
I will introduce you.
Okay, that means wild tea. It's fighting season, anyway. Okay? Fighting season.
This morning
is in the air. We got to fight.
That's right. This morning I have my longtime friend and activist, Loretta Clarke from Montreal with me. Loretta's been on the show before, and we go back a long ways. We were in Montreal together in 2014 at the Liberal Convention. We've spent time in Ottawa together. We've done a lot of activism, even though we live across the country from each other. And I love her. She's the best. So welcome Loretta Clarke this morning, everybody. And yeah, and the weather is crappy out there too, or it's spring?
Well, it's I think it's going up to 7 today, but you can just tell, like, we had, so many treacherous days of where you almost kill yourself on the ice because it's all hidden, and you know what I mean? And we had this bad weather for ice conditions, and of course we got potholes the size of elephants. Whatever.
Here too.
So we got potholes season 2 that was treacherous here. All right. So so spring is always one of my favorite times, I think, just because it's so hopeful. Winter is tough. It's tough on us. I think that's why we're such big tokers in Canada, like the biggest in the world. It's also why we're fucking awesome.
Yeah, I believe that too. It could be the fact why we use so much cannabis. It's because we do have the longest winters, and it's just ridiculous. And why I kind of have to laugh at people when they say, well, you guys grow the best pot up there. You do it outside. And I'm like, yeah, part of it. We don't have the seasons to be able to really grow some really decent 12-week strain. Like when you think your grow season for your 12 and 12, if you're outside, we don't got 12 weeks to grow those really good sativas. You know what I mean?
Well, when you think about it, it is kind of remarkable. But there is some cannabis that's native to Canada, right? And I don't know if it's that ruderalis ditchweed or whatever, but it was obviously here, and maybe it's kind of like us Canadians. And I'm sorry, I'm going to start being very patriotic because we stoners might have to become soldiers and fight the Russians because they are such a problem. And then we got white ISIS, okay? Fucking white ISIS. Poor Rachel Notley. And
I know. Everything's really crazy right now. Like, really, when it comes down to, the combativeness of people online, when it comes to politics, and when it comes to religion, and when it comes to race, I can't believe that we've come to this. I can't believe it. I am too. I have to admit, I'm out there, I'm so, I don't even know how to put it. I'm colorblind. I think religion is the root of all evil. I think if we had no religion, that the world would be a better place. That's my thoughts, my opinion, not necessarily the opinion of the radio station that I, or anything. Like, why we have a disclaimer?
Sure,
I'm allowed to say
sure.
what I want, and that's my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't believe that man should be forced to worship some deity that doesn't do anything for us. I'd rather smoke a joint and believe in myself and hope that I can change things for my family and myself for the better, right?
Sure, but when you believe in yourself, it's not good for slavery.
Well, no, that
what?
you know myself.
Iceland has banned all religions. Like, let's be like Iceland, like they
are
like.
Really? That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, Iceland is really a model to look to because they imprisoned their corrupt bankers years ago. Like, they changed everything. They have such a high standard of living in such a healthy way, and how they dealt with youth problems with addiction or whatever, like super healthy compared to, unfortunately, us who are greatly still too much influenced by America, where we really believe in this punitive kind of system. Every system that we have, whether it's justice or health or whatever, has this fucked up punitive side to it. And it's just but we are leading the cannabis revolution, even though we're really in still a fighting place. And I'm really up for like trying to get the NDP to like push the liberals. I'm into shaming the liberals because of this. I can't get over this 14 years for passing a joint to a 17-year-old. I can't get over it. It's because it can't be gotten over. It's just such an abomination of justice against us.
Well, we have
everything
to remember who was sitting on that committee. Remember who we had dealing out those laws. We had Bill Blair, who was the chief of police for Toronto for how many years. The people they put on the committee to actually work that cannabis file sucked.
Of course,
and I'm going to put it right there. And they screwed up that file so fucking bad, Loretta. And you and I both know this. We sat with these people, and we both know what we said to them. And we stood at that convention. We talked to how many of them about how things should be done right. Now I'm going to bring a story forward. Do you remember when we were standing outside and Karen Leslie came up to us and started talking to us?
Yeah.
And how she had said that she was like almost shocked that there was a liberal in Alberta to begin with, because at that time I was the delegate for the Crowfoot riding in Alberta. Yeah. I'm no longer in Alberta. I'm in British Columbia now, but I was the delegate for the Crowfoot riding. I was the first person that had ever gone to a liberal convention from that riding. Like, you'd never had a delegate from the Crowfoot riding in Alberta in the history of ever. It was history making. They were like, "Oh my God!"
Go down in the history books for that,
right? But it's the truth. Like, they had never had anybody hold a delegation from that riding before. So when I came out to Montreal for that convention, they were all like, "Oh my God, an Albertan from that riding?" Because Kevin Sorensen was the MP, and he still is the MP for that riding, right? And he's a strong, holder. He's never going to lose that seat. I doubt he'll ever lose that seat knowing that area. But anyway, it was funny because she came up to us and they had been stationed in Edmonton, and they had found that, and they were conservative at that time, because if you remember, Andrew got thrown under the bus by Stephen Harper and they crossed the floor over, and her son was having issues with addiction. And what did we both tell her? And what has she done? Exactly. And Andrew Leslie was instrumental in helping get that policy through, because we told them the difference between cannabis as recreational medicine and the difference in how it affects their son.
That's the thing.
Right.
We constantly, I complained to Health Canada consultants once about how we had to always educate the police. We were always constantly educating, and that's why I feel like what the Liberals have done to us is like a kick in the face. And I'm furious, and I am going to try and work with the NDP to push the Liberals to admit, also acknowledge, to never acknowledge that we've been hurt. I'm so pissed at that, okay? That, as if it, our human rights were never, seriously compromised, abused, set up for predators, constantly threatened, for using a plant on so many different levels, losing housing, losing relationships. How can he, I said to him in my email to him, Ralph Goodale, when he made the comment comparing gays and lesbians, and I, as a gay and lesbian growing up, I'm very aware of the kind of persecution and oppression and what I had to fight and all the BS I had to go through, and it was bad. I'm not going to undermine it. But, you know, I didn't know many people who got arrested for being gay and lesbian. I knew it happened. I knew certain things happened. People lost their jobs. But how many people in the cannabis community do I know who got arrested, whose family hurt them, kicked them out, you know, like ruined their lives over cannabis? I know so many. You know,
I know.
like, so
I know.
I'm not going to pretend that did not happen.
No, and you're right.
I'm very angry, and I want reparations. You know, and we could talk about this because here, you know, they are making billions and billions, even though they, you know, seem to have put out like a really terrible business plan thus far in many parts of the country, certainly in Quebec. But, you know, they're still making lots of money. And so that's why I'm going to try and because I tried 3 Liberals to get my petition done for community-based lounges and Compassion Club dispensaries. I'm going to try and get Jagmeet Singh to honor my petition, or I'm going to focus on some other NDP. But I got really bad attitude from one Liberal, Nathan from the Beaches, who was like trying to like lecture me like I have a bad attitude. Maybe if I had a better attitude, you know, I could do something with the Liberals or something. And I'm like, you're killing me. You are trying to give me that crap when you can't, like, admit that you fucked up on this legalization framework. Come on.
Right.
So,
well, I think my biggest bitch with the whole framework is that they've thrown the patients under the bus. That we have been rolled into the Cannabis Act. That we're the ones that actually got people to where they are. You know, I have, you know, people slinging shit at me about, you know, I can go and get this training now, and I can all do all these things thanks to legalization. And I'm like, you know what? If it wasn't for people like me and you and everybody that we stood on Parliament Hill to fight for patients' rights for, you wouldn't have that fucking store. You know what I mean? And I think
no, sure,
pisses me right off. When you got people that are sitting in your face, right?
Yes.
Just
we should have jobs in the cannabis industry, like first, and people should get.
I've got a criminal record. I'm not desirable in the industry, and that's what pisses me off. I fought to get people there. It ain't gonna matter. It is not gonna matter. They can expunge everything I've ever done. I still, you know, admittedly, there's an article about me in Maclean's magazine. I can't expunge that. You know what I'm saying? It's common knowledge. So for me to go walking into somewhere and say, I've got a pardon now, even though you know that I've had prior, you know, it's bullshit. Everybody that has a cannabis record should be welcomed with open arms and say, you might know what you're talking about. You might be somebody that might possibly be an expert. You've done how many years doing this, and we're going to just blow you away? Poof.
No, of course.
Bye-bye.
It's about justice. Yeah, it's about justice, too. Like, this is about justice in terms of we built this industry, and they just want to, you know, trample on us and call us all criminals still. Like, no, we have to get people activated and organized, and it's happening. Like, one thing I saw on Facebook a few days ago is there are dispensaries who are doing a class action suit, right, through Conroy. Do you know much about that?
Mm-hmm. I've seen it come across, but I think they're still looking for a bunch of funding because, I mean, there are the first one that they did in BC here that was a trial run didn't go through. Now, this morning I was sent an article that the CEO of Origami is calling for the government to crack down on the black market. And the black market is, you know, it is what it is. I'm sorry. When you've got
black market, like, I think we all can sort of work at being less racist. I'm going to be one of those people. And let's call it the street market or the original market. Like, no, let's not call it the black market. Fuck that. It's racist. Let's call it the street market, or I like to call it the original market now. That's what I call it. Okay.
That's true. It's true. And the funny thing is like a lot of, and the microcrafting, you know, legislation applications really aren't even set. There are people here that are trying to get, you know, that licensing as well, but it's not easy. Like we're almost a year into this new program, a year into legalization, and microcrafting licenses aren't being given out.
Sure. No, of course they're going to delay. Of course, they're going to delay all of that so they can give all this advantage to the LPs. I get that. But what I want in my petition, I want us to have exempted lounges paid for by the federal government, like a federal program, and where we can have our programming based on the health needs of the neighborhood. And each neighborhood might be a little bit different, and one there might be, autism, and another, there could be lots of opiate addiction, and another HIV. Like you address the needs of your neighborhood with programming, and the people who are affected by what's happening to them also are part of building the programming. So that's what community-based really means. And so I'm asking, I want us to, and for us to create jobs for those who were negatively impacted by getting arrested and just putting up with like colossal amounts of BS for years and years and years. That we are the managers, and we are the ones who are going to be working in such exempted lounges and compassion clubs. There's, and I think they truly have to be compassionate, like they have to be medical. They have to like go back to the roots of how medical started. So like, I think a really great example is what Neil does out in Vancouver, and how he collects cannabis from, some dispensaries. I believe Dana's is one of them, and he distributes them in a part of the downtown east side that has a real problem with opiate addiction. Like, that is life-saving stuff to do that.
Yeah.
And so to me,
they're doing it in Hamilton too, actually. There's other communities in Ontario. Hamilton started doing a substitution program as well. So other communities are, I think Jeff Lundstrom out in Saskatoon was trying to set one up there too. I know we've been trying to get one going here. It's about getting supply, right? It's a donation train that you have to have set up specifically, because you can't run out. Like, once you set these people up into this program, you have to be sure that you can have everything that they're going to need week following, and you have to be able to sustain. And that's where a lot of these programs really need to reach out. And with having donations, it's something that it's not easy to come by, not anymore.
Like, if some LPs weren't such greedy bitches, they would work with community people. Like, and there is an opportunity. Let's all be like super negative. We've already overcome a lot, but it's just the way that they frame this. And I just can't get over the fact that they never talk about the victims of the war on drugs. They only talk about criminals. And part of me really is so angry at Trudeau for that. But I'm also like, everybody's all tied up in this NC Lavalin thing. And, I don't see it as the big scandal that, of course, the Conservatives just want to like blow it out of proportion, because they're really the scandal masters, especially when it comes to fraud. And, so basically, but, Jody Rayson Wilbold and also Jane Philpott, they were not good to us. They were not good feminists to us. They were the framers of this legalization too. So I can't, like I said, that whole cabinet, the whole works of them that were stuck there. They didn't do this as feminists. This legalization framework is definitely not feminist. It's elitist. It's colonialist. It's not feminist. So I'm sorry, I can't get too upset for you women. I just can't, because I've been adversely, negatively affected by your lack of feminism. That's how I feel about them. So I'm angry. I'm angry a lot these days. It's true. And that's why I gotta go out and walk.
Yeah, right. And that's good, because that fire is what keeps us, that anger is what keeps us still involved and engaged in what we do, right? Because let's face it, after 2007, how long have you been going at this? Like, it's over 10 years for me, but it's that anger, and it's that fire that keeps you engaged, right?
I feel like, I was born an activist and fighting always, and this fight for me started 30 years ago. So it's been like it's on the, around HIV and AIDS, and people dying sick and whatever, and getting medicine at that point. And it's, it grew from there. And I slowly went from super duper queer activist to fucking super stoner survivor activist, and I don't know that it's always good to, it's not good to always be so angry. It's not. We're lucky we have cannabis, so we got to have fun with it. We got to play. We got to get away from social media, because, I started to get nasty with the white ISIS, and I like to call them that because it would piss off both ISIS camps, at the same time. So I feel like it's like, one, arrow that, slays two of them. And so I like but also, so I've been calling like the conservatives conservatives like constantly. And I'm like, I'm like getting so and then I'm having some nasty, really nasty exchanges, which is not healthy. To like at a certain point, it's better to disengage and like totally not get to whatever. But I also at the same time, there is a real threat out there of white fucking ISIS in Canada and all over, Europe and America, and Trump is fostering it. But, the conservatives here are too, like fucking all of them are like always in a picture with a fucking Nazi. You know what I mean? Like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. I know it's hard to swallow. And for me, like, I mean, I have a very diverse Facebook list. Let's put it that way. And I have a very diverse, growing up in Southern Alberta, I'm from here, but I was, raised in Alberta, and being from out there, I'm got a very diverse list of friends. And I'm not going to say that I agree with all of them, because I most certainly do not. I'm sure I've got some bigots on my Facebook threads too. I'm pretty sure I can acknowledge a couple of them. I don't have to agree with them, but they have a right to speak, I guess, because of our Constitution, which I think is disgusting in some aspects, but they still have a right to speak their opinions. So as much as I don't like their opinion, I still would fight for their right to have it. You know what I'm saying? And I know you would too. It's disgusting to me. I mean, to me, some of the wordings, it's disgusting to me. It hurts my heart. It makes me want to cry that I see some of my good friends, some people that I love, saying such nasty, horrible things, and I just want to cry. But I can't, because it's not going to change anything, right?
It's not important to be right. It's like, I don't want everyone to think the same way I do. It's impossible anyway. Right? And I don't care, and I don't expect them to. I try to disengage when it gets when it's going in a nasty direction, but I'm a fighter, and if you throw some, real serious racism down, I'm gonna like have a fight.
Yeah, me too. I will too. I mean, like that is.
They are, and I don't really care. But yeah, I've been dealing with some, because I'm calling them white ISIS. They're saying they'd rape you, they'd rape your ass, like all this fucking stupid shit. Like you just realize how incredibly immature they, that there's this immaturity. But there is also, there's definitely an initiative.
But they believe it. But that's the thing. They have been so much propaganda of this that they will actually believe it.
Sure, but there's like real initiative going on from the white ISIS camp in Russia to have a factory of these memes that cause confusion and cause anger. Like, we shouldn't always get so sucked into it either. I mean, this is what I'm having this conversation with myself too. But on the other hand, I want to fight these fuckers, because I'm not putting up with this shit. I've been alive for 6 decades now practically, and the fact that I fought them before, but I just am really pissed that I have that they've risen up, and I have to fight them. I know, but it's even more nasty this time, because they are fucking so nasty. Sometimes you gotta fight fire with fire, but you gotta be smarter.
Absolutely.
And you gotta fight.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back and talk to you some more about, I don't know, maybe we'll talk some CBDs and what you do with the lounges and stuff in Montreal and what you got going on in the future here. So we'll be right back with Loretta. We're going to thank my sponsors, who are 12 High Chicks Magazine, Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners, Maretimers for Marijuana, and Haley Rose Foundation. We're going to have the Killing Time Band today with Hippie Girl. We'll be right back.
Wednesday is an action-packed day here at 420radio.ca. At noon Eastern, we get things started with Cannabis and Coffee with Tamarijuana. Then at 3 p.m., the doctor is in. We can catch the Higher Estate with Dr. Ira Price. Finish up the evening at 8 p.m. with the award-winning Pace Radio Show with myself, Al Graham, and my rotating joint hosts. So don't forget to tune in on Wednesdays, when we can catch these live shows and their guests only here at 420radio.ca.
Hey, this is Cheech.
And this is Chong.
And you're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
What is it?
Lifestyle Radio. Say it one more time.
420 Radio?
Ooh.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
All right,
Or
we're
something like
back
that.
with Loretta. I'm chatting a little bit about lounges and stuff and everything that's going on down at Ganjanista in Hamilton, where they've got the Hope program as well, working fashioned after Neil's substitution program in Vancouver. So that's something that, you know, people are doing across the country, because opiate substitution is something, opioid is something that affects everybody, even here. We have it here. Cranbrook's a population of just over 20,000 people. Like, it's not a huge city that I'm in. It's a city apparently, but it's 20,000 people. Last statistics was 19,000 and change kind of thing in 2016. So this is not a big community. I mean, it is, but it's not. It's not Montreal. It's not Toronto. It's not Calgary. Calgary's sitting at 1.8 million people. And opioid crisis has reached every community in this country. I don't care if you're living in a population of 700 or you're living in a population of 20,000. So these substitution programs are impeccable that we get them started across the country if we can. And you were talking about government funding, and then again, and I'll mention, well, that's not really, you know, what we're kind of looking for, but you're right, in aspects they give the police budgets,
I'm asking that.
healthcare budgets, right? It should be in a healthcare. We have to then, because of it,
if we don't ask,
we have to talk for healthcare,
right?
them. That's right.
If we don't ask, we'll never get. Okay, and like, we got to be better at asking, because I think we sucked at the last election and not demanded. I mean, some of us were demanding to be integrated so that we could, yes, do a framework that would have been way fucking more fair. But, you know, we didn't have strong enough, big enough voices, I guess. I don't know. Or
we didn't have enough money.
We
didn't have enough money. That's what it was, Loretta. It's not that we didn't have the voices. We didn't have the money. And that's what it all boils down to.
We also believe that the Liberals would never have betrayed us the way that they have, and that is the truth. So I think it's amazing. We are fucking lifesavers. Yes, the opiate addiction is a huge problem across the world, probably. And, you know, who was it created by? Let's be honest, okay? Like, it was created by pharma in a big way in terms of developing these OxyContins. We know this is all true. There's lawsuits, and there's no accountability. And yes, cannabis community, super survivors, saving lives across Canada. And what do we get for it? We get being treated still like a criminal. So no, I am asking definitely in my petition to Jagmeet Singh and the NDP and to the Liberals who should take a second look at it, because they should be ashamed and have a hard time looking at themselves in the mirror with how they did do this legalization. And they got to know that there's a karmic political price for it. So I'm for, like, making these two push out for justice. And justice to me would mean, like, yes, a federal program that is about compassionate clubs and lounges, where there is, yes, some funding, absolutely, to create programs to address these needs. And maybe even some LPs that have, you know, some decency would contribute the weed, you know, too. So yes, there's an opportunity for integration. We have to push for that. We got to, like, sometimes move out of our anger. I got a lot of it towards the Liberals big time. And, you know, but I also have it towards the NDP. They fail us too constantly. Like,
I think our government fails us on a regular basis. And I think we have to, like, I think our government fails us all on a regular basis. I think on all levels, in some aspects in our lives, whether it's cannabis, healthcare, education, somewhere along the line, our government's dropped the ball for all of us. And I think that's where we all have to stand together, you know?
Yes, but it's, you know, like, let's face it, it's, you know, it may not be the best democracy, but it is one of the better ones in the world, and we do pretty good at it. We are the government, too. I don't know that we'd all do such a way, way, way better job. I'd like to think that, yeah, I'd love the opportunity to show that, you know, I would bring some justice into my job in the, you know, whatever ministry I was working in health. Oh, my God, what a ministry of hell that has been for us. I mean, let's be real. Let's get feminists to write, you know, a PhD thesis on the legacy of what Ministry of Health did to us, you know. So there's a lot that has got to come out, and I want to demand that they start talking about how, yes, cannabis is for developing brains, actually, and to start talking about how important it is as a plant, and to start thanking the activists and those of us who've been fighting for so long, you know, for this. But we have to fight for justice, because what we got in this last legalization framework, which is a process in the making still, was just absolutely unjust and needs to be shamed. And I'm, you know what? I'm one of those Catholics. It's really interesting, but my inner shame cup is always half full. So I'm giving it to them.
Well, it's good that we've got, people with a voice, like, and like I said, diversity across the country. We have so many people that are moving forward. Are you guys planning a 420 in Montreal this year, or what do you guys got? Anything going on about?
Yeah, there's always, and every year it gets bigger and bigger. From, I've been here 12 years, and I have to say the first couple of years, really small action at the mountain, but now the mountain is covered in people, and there's even, you see some sponsorships of small cannabis companies doing dabs and things like that. So it's definitely developing. And the police are usually quite good. They're, on the periphery, just kind of getting some secondhand smoke and looking happier than usual. And, but it's always fucking cold. That's the thing that I find harsh. Here, I just see, it's like, it's for some reason, I just can't wait for that April 20th, day when it's like super sunny and warm the whole day, but it seems to always be cold. But I always go out for a little bit. For sure.
Well, I'm just wondering, because of the difference of this year comparably to last year, how many people, I know Ottawa's planning, I know Vancouver's planning. I'm not hearing too much murmurings. I think Winnipeg might be planning again. But I mean, do you think people aren't really focused on 420 this year because of legalization? Do you feel that the regulations are going to stop or change how people see 420?
Well, this is the thing about Montreal. Montreal really is a pagan town, and where they do 420, which is on Mount Royal, it's super pagan, and it's like every Sunday they have what's starting in the spring to the fall. They have what's called tam-tams, and I used to tell tourists at the head shop I worked at for the first 5 years when I lived here, first got here, that this was church for Montrealers on Sunday, and this is where people could go buy weed and whatever. And so there's this culture, and it's just kind of part of, I think, the French culture too. But of course now it's all mixed, and obviously Indigenous culture. But it's just a lot of drumming and. It's quite, it's quite sweet. A lot of people love doing it, on a summer Sunday, and so it's natural that this is the place for 420, and it's just as it should be. It just seems it's now become kind of a yearly ritual, and it's really all young people, which is awesome. So I think it's going to be like a religious holiday, and that's good. I think it'll fit that way. Yeah.
Right. Well, it's kind of a celebration, right? I think 420 should be a celebration. Even the legalization that we don't like the framework. I don't, but I do like the fact that people aren't getting busted for a joint. Because here I haven't heard, normally our RCMP puts out a thing that, once a month it comes out in our newspaper that shows what they've, how many calls have come in and what they've done, right?
Oh,
and
yeah,
who's been arrested, but what they've, domestic calls and how many and whatever, right?
Sure.
And the last 6 months, usually you would see drug seizures, and it was always marijuana. Now you don't see that. The drug seizures that you're seeing now is methamphetamine, heroin, and in a small town of 20,000 people, when you see drug seizures of cocaine and heroin and meth and no marijuana, you're thinking, well, that's good. At least they're looking and focusing on the bad stuff again, But I also feel that small amounts of all drugs should be legalized and regulated too. That's my aspect, my stance. I think that it would be, for health purposes, be a lot better if small amounts of all drugs were legalized. That's just my stance on that.
We absolutely have to end the war on drugs. I mean, even this opiate addiction is part of the war on drugs. We have to see it as that, and how much white coats caused the war on drugs and made it worse. And
thank Ronald Reagan. 1982. Woohoo! Thank you very much, you fuck. No, and that's what started this, right? Well, yeah, but he really ramped it up at 82 too. It was just ridiculous.
Yeah, and definitely been ramped up over time, and just always being ramped up because it's such a lucrative, business. But it's time to end the war on drugs, period. Because I don't think there's a war, really, like, what other wars? I don't know, like, has it killed more people than in Syria? I mean, I hate to do like a numbers thing because it's a really terrible thing to do because all life is important. But, you know, this fog of the war on drugs has been such a toxic fog. And they say the first casualty of any war is truth. And we know that is for sure the big, you know, the first 500 casualties of the war on drugs are truth. And part of that also about how it really has become a war. Like, if you don't take their drugs, you know, then you're in trouble. You got to take their drugs. Everybody's on drugs, but you got to take their drugs. You know, like, that's what the war on. And it's time to end it and acknowledge this, you know, horrific devastation that's happened. We have a leader in the Philippines who was proud, called himself the Hitler of drug users, went around killing lots of poor people who use drugs or may have sold, like, just like, you know, just the drug user and, you know, and all these people dying of opiate addiction and whatever. I mean, it's the war on drugs needs to be addressed, and we need to, like, slam it down.
I think we need to address addiction too. And tonight on the Passionate Eye on CBC, there's actually a whole program on addiction and the chemical breakdowns in our brain. I'm interested to watch that because, you know, they say that we're prerequisite for addiction. That's something that, you know, I've heard over the years, that, you know, alcoholism and you know, genetically can be prerequisited for you to be, if you have, you know, if you're a child of an alcoholic. So, you know, that's also addiction. So, you know, I'm interested to watch that just to get some more information on the chemical in our brains that cause, because there's always a root evil to everything, right? And I think that's what we're lacking, is we're not looking for the root evil of it all.
Sure. But the root evil of it all is the fact that they turned people into criminals who had addictions. They didn't treat it like a healthcare issue. Okay, now finally that's happening in the more clever socialist countries of Europe and whatever, finally recognized. Portugal, amazing, finally recognizing that. And imagine if they did to people with diabetes what they did to people with addictions or people who needed cannabis, so that you had to, like, deal with all this nefarious nastiness and gangsters and whatever to get your medicine. Imagine if you had to do that for your insulin. Like, we need to, like, shove it in their faces in terms of what they can relate to, because unfortunately the fog, the toxic fog, and the way the pill enslavement thing has happened, they just accept so easily the status quo that, yeah, drugs are bad and, you know, people who are addicted are weak, you know, whatever, even though, you know, it's just also stupid, right? But this is what we're fighting, prejudices, for sure. But they sure as hell could have made it so much easier if they treated it like a healthcare issue starting 30 years ago and not, like, just making it more and more a criminal issue, thereby absolutely guaranteeing that most of the people who are in prison have mental illness, have addictions. Like, you know, it's terrible. It's disgusting.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, I know out here that, you know, they're kind of beating it with, you know, healthcare. I know Cranbrook now, our ARCS here is offering free nioxin kits and free training this weekend, or I believe Friday. So if you're local in the area and want to pick up a nioxin kit and have the training, Anchors here in town is actually doing that.
Great training in a lounge.
And I think that, exactly.
That we government program money for, because we deserve a fucking budget too. Absolutely we do. Absolutely.
Well, I think that we need to start, like, realizing that government's not here to help us, right? We have to help ourselves. And if we look at the big picture of this, over the last 12 years that I've been involved in this cannabis movement and the community that we have, it's been other patients helping patients. It's patients that have been helping patients since the very get-go. It's still patients helping patients, and it should be patients over profit, right from the, like. And that's how we've always, like, my stance has been too, is patient over profit. If you can help somebody gain some access and put them in the right direction, that's what you do. You pay it forward. So looking for government help. Oh, I'm not even gonna be. I think that's monotonous. Beating my head against a wall.
No. But government programs have helped people. There's no doubt about it. Healthcare too. Generally speaking, there has been help. There's no question. But it's time for reform. And, you know, at one time, all firefighters who are lifesavers were volunteer until it was realized that they needed to be government funded to be really much more effective. And I want that analogy. My father was a fire chief, and I'm trying to get an old Pompier station here across the street from where I am to be a lounge. But anyways, that's awesome. Another little thing that but I think about that, the way the fire department developed, that's how our fucking lounges can develop, because we are lifesavers. We are first responders. That is what Hill is doing and what Hope is doing in Hamilton. No, we have to ask for it. We can't just say, no, we have to ask for it. We have to have a bigger...
Maybe that can be incorporated with harm reduction too. Like, I know that Neil's working at Vandu, right, which is a government-funded entity in Vancouver. So I know they're not getting any government funding, but they're at least working out of a governmentally funded project in downtown Vancouver, right?
So there's no reason why cannabis lounges can't be partnered with some agencies that help the homeless, that actually help with addiction, help with HIV, that help with, fucking transgender, right? That help with sex workers, whatever, for sure. There's no reason why we can't, really change everything from the bottom up. And we deserve that. We deserve that because we are such fucking amazing first responders. So I'm saying that, but that's how I feel. Like, whenever I see Neil and what he's doing and hearing about Hope in Hamilton, and I know people are doing stuff in their various communities, like you say, this is who people, I don't like the word patient. I hate it because I'm not patient. And because I just feel like that's part of, how the healthcare system, wants us to be, and I don't want to be, so, but there's no question, it was the medical movement that brought us legalization, that saved many, many lives, that part of our frustration is, being held down, kept poor, all of that. But we also know part of our frustration and anger is that we could have saved so many more. And we still can, and
there is hope for other people out there, because like I said, we've got still dispensaries that are not government run in my province still running. In Vancouver, Nelson has a couple, I think, that are still running there. So there is some, I think, I'm not sure about Toronto anymore. I was saying, I think the first government opened one, opened in Toronto yesterday or something. They're just starting to get them open out there. We only have a couple in this province that are actually legal entities as well. You know what I'm saying? With this slow process of having the government licensing and having to bring it, to the municipality first and then take it to the province. It's a long process, and it can be expensive. And for anybody, like you said, that's poor, you don't have a hope in hell of ever getting into that industry. It's just not going to happen.
That's why we have to have a program. And it needs to work federally. We should have a provincial stakeholder on it and a municipal one, because we do have to work with the cities. That's why, I know this building across the street from where I live, which is an old Pompier fire station. It's under the jurisdiction of the city of Lachine. So I've been on the phone to them, and I had a meeting with some dude and whatever. And so I'm still meeting with them on maybe they'll let the community kitchen be a place to make edibles. I'm trying to get it. And it's part of them is very interested and wants to, but another part of them is still scared and doesn't know and is waiting always for the first one, what I mean? Then we know it's just like dominoes. There's no question. Wild tea. In 10 years, there's going to be goddamn aisles in IGA and Provigo and Loblaws and every store that are just all cannabis food. We know that, okay? Aisles that are just, this is the cannabis here. Aisles. We know that, okay? Everything is going to change. And we just, we need to make sure that, and we got to take care of each other. We got to have those lounges to heal ourselves. I believe we need a program that we deserve to be healed too, from fighting this for so long. So, we need places to gather and network and keep it up. But let's really see what's going to be happening, because it's just going to roll out and be unstoppable. There's no question about that. And that in itself is going to be good for the world. The more people get to eat it and everything, the way better it's going to be for the world.
Absolutely.
So, everything.
Well,
we need to get our due. We need to get our due. I'm fighting for my due.
Okay, honey, we're going to be wrapping it up here. Is there anybody you want to shout out to or say, what do you got going on, or any lounge? What do you got? Any events going on out there?
Sure. There's a lounge event this Saturday, March 23rd, and it's called The Sesh, and basically it's produced by the wonderful Reese Turner, and there's always like an amazing lineup of comics. We have our little green market there. I'm there. I have a table. And anyone who's in Montreal, it's a really awesome night. It's $20 to get in. It's always full. I'm hoping it becomes, more frequent, right? It's been once a month, and hoping it gets more frequent. But it's a fantastic, fantastic venue and event. So that's coming up this Saturday. Anybody, the secret location, anybody who wants to go, who's in Montreal, just send me a message.
So you can get a hold of Loretta on Facebook. She's Clarke. She's you can catch her through my and low, yeah. And get the information on that event this weekend. Sounds like it would be a good time for sure. I'd like to thank my. Is it? Yeah, you've been doing it once a month. That's excellent too, right? Like just even have events like that. We just don't have the community here to do that yet, but we're working on it. That's the only thing you can say is we keep on working on it, right? And educate your education is the key. So again, I'd like to thank my sponsors, who are 12 High Chicks Magazine, Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners, Maritime United for Medical Marijuana, and the Haley Rose Foundation. My producer Al Rapp, and Loretta. Thanks so much for being on my show. Everybody have. Yeah, exactly. You have a great week, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye.
Lots of love.
So what are you doing? Nothing. Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, yeah, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.